So, Paul, can you tell our listeners who you are and what you do?
I am a third-generation Sonoma County born and raised farmer. We started a wine-growing company about 9 years ago, and we're focused on meticulous farming and working with teamwork, following our grape product through to the winery, and we recently started our own wine label as well.
Can you give us kind of a snapshot of what your computer system was that you had supporting this operation?
We started from a shoestring. We had an Apple computer that we were using to get through college, and that was our computer for the first couple of years, and then we switched to an IBM, but we only had one computer for the business, and that was very simple. We didn't have an IT solution at that point. Then we started networking our second computer to the first, and complications started arising with Outlook not synchronizing properly and losing data from not having that set up properly and not having backups done. So we started calling people to help us try to figure things out. At that point, there wasn't a large budget for our technical side of things, and so I guess people were putting Band-Aids on for us for the time being, or maybe they didn't even really know how to approach it. And as we kept growing as a company, we would add more computers, and the problems would get more and more complex, and I was really looking for a company that was taking the approach that I take with all of my equipment and with my farming, and that's proactive rather than reactive. I was looking for a company that would come in and train people how to properly use a software program, or would suggest to me, we see a possibility for problems in this area. Why don't we tear it apart and figure out how we can prevent problems in the future? And I tried a couple of companies, and none of them were able to quite get me there until I met Jim Hood with CMIT Solutions, and he came in and he evaluated our system, worked with it for a short period of time, and then made a recommendation. Now, of course, the recommendation was a bit hard to swallow because it was get a real server, buy some new software, and reboot everything. I felt with the quantity of money that we had spent the 3 years previous to that on our IT solutions, and each year it was just getting more and more money as we added computers, that it was worth biting the bullet and doing what Jim suggested, and so far we've had zero problems. So,
what did that result in terms of problems? What could you not do, or what were the things that were getting in your way? Do you remember?
Well, we did have one office person accidentally delete a bunch of QuickBooks data.
Ooh.
And we didn't have a proper backup system. We thought we did. We had invested in a tape drive backup system, but it wasn't being monitored on a regular basis whether those backups were being recorded correctly and so forth. So we said, don't worry, we'll just go back to our tape backup to find out that for the last month or so the backups were not occurring. We were changing the tapes every day, but nobody was checking the backups. That was a huge cost. We had to go back for about 3 months and just read data entry, all of that information by hand. I know that it was at least a week of that person just sitting down and doing data entry, and the problem is it never gets rebuilt to the true integrity of the data. And so the problem is, as we're looking to do reporting and creating estimates for future projects and so forth, that data does not have integrity. So we basically lost that for reporting purposes in the future and that sort of thing. And that wasn't the only situation. We've lost our Outlook database a couple of times. Luckily, I had a restore from my PDA, but, Outlook has been a nightmare in the past because of some problems with the configuring of it in the first network setup. And I think that's probably where we've lost the most time, because we do mail merges send out, Christmas mailers, and now for our wine business, we're sending out newsletters and spring releases and fall releases, and every time you have to go back in and reformat all of these people and reformat it so that it works with your mail merge. I think that's probably where we've lost the most time, and the most frustrating problems were with that contact database.
And what happens when you lose that contact database? What effect does that have on your business? Have you ever tried to look at what the dollar impact is on that?
It was huge. It's not only emotionally is it extremely draining, but the countless hours of, just re-putting in the data and resetting, all of the different settings that we had for when we wanted to run a mailing list or a mailer for just people that bought a certain tier of our wines. You don't have that in the computer anymore, so you have to either just ignore it, or we were doing things like printing it out on paper, so you'd have to go through thousands of contacts.
Oh, gosh.
And then
it's hurting me to listen to that.
Reset the category for each person, whether they get a Christmas card and whether they're on this wine mailing list and that sort of thing. So we had to do that, I think, 2 or 3 times, and Jim finally has gotten rid of that issue for us.
So what would you tell a business owner out there who's sitting there, and maybe they're in the same situation that you found yourself, where you've grown your system, but now it really needs to go someplace else? What are the things that you think they should look at in terms of making this financial decision?
If you're experiencing problems, I don't think you can wait. For me, the way that I approached it, and I can't speak for every business owner, but I read a lot of books on how to be a better business owner and how to take approach for growth and success, and that is look out 5 years. Where do you plan on being? And then if you were to take the approach of thinking about, if I don't do this today, where will I be in 5 years? Is this a limiting factor for me? And for us, it clearly was a limiting factor. We had grown from 1 office person to 6 office people in a year, and we were exponentially growing our tech problems and our tech costs. And the proposal that Jim gave us was one that, for the upgrading of our system, it was about what we were spending on a year of tech expense. And then with the marathon proposal, which is the maintenance package or the proactive package as I look at it, you're proactively taking an approach to solving problems rather than reactively. It might cost me a little more right then, or maybe you don't even know how much it actually saved you because you're all of a sudden not having the kind of problems that we were. We had somebody out here once a week with problems. My Outlook is crashing, or this document keeps dipping, or we'd print screen some error message that we were getting and send it to them, and it seemed like everything was just a Band-Aid for a while, and we're just not getting that kind of stuff anymore.
Right. The thing that makes Jim and CMIT a little bit unique is that they're not only a local presence of a franchise, but they've got a large franchise behind them. How important is that peace of mind to you, to have more than just the local person here working with you, but an actual company behind that?
It is nice knowing that you've got something substantial behind you. If something were to happen to Jim's local franchise, that through their systems and their operation, they would be able to find the proper solution for us. That's a nice feeling, not just have your one-man show coming out that we used to have, and if they were sick, and you had an IT problem, when they got better, you would be taken care of.
Any last thing that you think we should add to this conversation?
We're just happy we finally have found the type of IT solutions for our company. When we started out and we first hired our first tech, we did some research. We called around, and a small business that was doing well in the area recommended somebody, and we got into it and we said, wow, this is great. They solved our problem right away, and then problems kept popping up. And the follow-through with CMIT is what we were looking for. It's a little more expensive on the hourly side, or a little more expensive than some of the other options, but it's kind of like getting it fixed once and getting it fixed right, rather than having somebody out here regularly. It almost seemed like the previous IT people were kind of employees of ours that worked on a part-time basis. They were here so much, and we won't hear or see from them for sometimes weeks on end now, and that's really allows us to use our workstations to get work done and that sort of thing. So it was a long process for us that I kind of look back with that 20/20 hindsight and say, gosh, if I had found these folks from the beginning, how much money would I have saved? How much time would I have saved? And allowed myself to spend time doing what I do in business rather than trying to learn another business and educate myself about somebody else's business. So I would encourage people. I learned a big lesson. Pay attention to your IT solutions from the beginning. Make it part of your business plan, and go with the people that have the knowledge and skills to really get in there and solve your problems or prevent you from having problems in the first place. Would be the ideal, because we were definitely in the solve my problem situation rather than prevent them in the first place, which is not a situation I like to be in, but I think every small business owner ends up in on occasion.